Have you ever stopped short of pursuing a big idea or dream simply because you had no idea how to make it happen? The limiting belief that I don't know how has kept me from taking action on so many of my own ideas in the past. Until, that is, I learned to reframe it. So today, I'm going to talk about busting this myth that not knowing is a disadvantage, because I believe it may actually be the key to your success in pursuing your next big idea. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I cannot believe that we are literally days away from Powerhouse Women 2019. And I've been planning this baby for an entire year. So the fact that it is almost here seems so surreal. There may be a few lingering tickets left. I'm recording this a few weeks early, so by the time this airs, I'm not sure if we're going to have tickets left or not. But if you know that you are meant to be in that room, you can send me an email and I will make sure that we create space for you, because I do believe that the women who feel called to be there are feeling that way for a reason, and there is something for you in coming to this event and meeting the women who are going to be there. And it really is. It's just like the most fun day of the entire year. It's like my birthday and Christmas and New Year's Eve wrapped together and then dipped in glitter. That's like how I describe it. So if you want a dose of that, you can reach out, and I will absolutely create space for you even if our tickets are sold out by the time this airs. And we're going to actually tackle a topic today that is similar to content that we will dive into at the Powerhouse Women event, because I think that for a lot of us, the feeling of, well, I don't know how to do that is one of the first thoughts that crosses our minds when we feel the nudge to create that next big idea. And I know that has been the case for me. So many of the things that I will see and think, gosh, maybe that would be cool, or I would love to have a podcast of my own someday, or, host an event. The next thought in my mind is, well, I have no idea how to do that. And it stopped me from doing some things that I really felt deep down I was meant to do. And a lot of that I've shared, throughout this podcast journey and just some of the limiting beliefs that I've had to overcome. But the thought of I don't know is one that has shown up more than any other. And I think it's actually tied a lot deeper to just this desire to be able to control things and desire to want to know every step from A to Z, and also have the assurance that whatever big project I'm going to take on next is going to work out the way that I wanted it to and have the desired result. And the truth is, I'm just learning. I'm laughing because I'm like, this is not something that I have always practiced, but I'm learning that we don't usually get to see the full journey. We just get to see the first little baby step that we are meant to take next, and trust that the next step is going to reveal itself once we get going. Now, I know some of you may not relate to this at all. You might thrive on the adventure of diving in and learning something new. And I honor you. Honestly, I want to channel a little bit more of that. I'm learning to become more, just to surrender more to the journey. But for those of you who do find that you buy into this story, that you don't know what you're doing, so maybe you should wait until you're ready, you should collect some more information before you get started, I really hope that this conversation today frees you up a bit to just take that next step and just try whatever you see the next logical step to be, and trust that it's either going to teach you something or it's going to lead you to the second step in the journey. So I was thinking about this over the last few days and really thinking about some lessons that I've learned, most of them the hard way, about how big of a lie it was that I believed not knowing was my disadvantage. And I really kind of boiled it down to three things that I feel like my own journey over the last few years has taught me. And the first one is, it's kind of like obvious, but I didn't really embody it until I started getting messy and jumping in and doing things that I wasn't quite sure I had any business doing. And that is that when we lean into something that we don't know how to do, it's going to feel super uncomfortable, which is a sign that we are going to grow. Now, I don't know that whole limiting belief. I really, if I'm honest, can see that it was more of a cover-up for a deeper limiting belief of I'm not enough. So it's easy to say, well, I don't really know how to do that. I don't know how to start a podcast, so I'm not going to do that. But really deep down, if I was committed to learning how to do whatever it is that my big goal is, I could learn. There's Google. Like, there's no shortage of information out there these days. And the truth is, deep down, it's usually covering up something a lot deeper of the belief or the fear that maybe I'm not enough, or I won't be good at it, or someone will judge or criticize. So it's not necessarily the not knowing that scared me. It was, well, what if I actually go for this and find out that I'm not enough? And I don't know if you can relate to that. I mean, that takes some serious self-reflection and honesty in order to just identify what is underneath. But when you're willing to go there and when you're willing to look at for you if that is true, and if you can see that saying you don't know how is really covering up maybe a deeper fear that you're not going to be good at it, or maybe this won't work out the way that you thought, then that is the point where you actually have the opportunity to grow and move beyond limiting beliefs that may have held you back your entire life. And I remember having this aha moment when I decided I was going to train for my first fitness competition. And I really got to this place where I noticed that I always had this story in my mind of seeing these, healthy and strong bodies of women on fitness magazines or on stage, fitness competitions, and believing deep down that there was something different about them than there was about me. Until it was literally just like this light bulb moment where I just really kind of asked myself, wait a minute, why not me? All that I would need to do is learn what they eat, how they work out, what is their mindset, what are the skills necessary in order to step into that role. And it was one of the first times in my life that I actually challenged that deeper belief that maybe something wasn't for me, because I really felt called to it. I really felt that it was something I wanted to do, a new challenge I wanted to try. And when I stepped into it and dedicated myself to learning and just experimenting with what was waiting for me if I stepped into that goal, it was just one of the most fun times of my life. Now, I wasn't in it to become the best or to be on the cover of fitness magazines. I really took it on as a personal challenge just to grow through this limiting belief that there was something different about me or my capability and me versus the women who were already doing this. And it really was, it was the most radical experience and growth that I've ever gone through, because it set the example that if there's something I wanted to achieve, I could learn how. And if I really wanted to dedicate myself to becoming at the top level of that profession or that field, I could figure out how to do that too. I could hire a coach. I could learn what is needed. And I think that the takeaway for this is no matter what it is that you want to do, maybe it's a business goal, maybe it's a project you want to start, the best way to start to reassure your mind that yes, you absolutely can. And even if you don't know how, you could figure out the first next step is to find someone who has done what you want to do and see how you can learn from them. So is it someone you can hire as a coach? Can you even just observe how they have built their company? Or if it's someone in fitness that you look up to, can you observe like how they work out, how they eat? Whatever it is, there is probably someone who has done what you want to do, who has gone where you want to go, and you can learn from them, either just by observing or sometimes even by hiring that exact person to be your mentor or be your coach. And there's a lot of value in that, in just our minds realizing that the only thing standing between us and somewhere we want to go is the willingness to learn. The willingness to learn how and be willing to be bad enough long enough until we get better, until we eventually become great. And that growth journey is really exciting, but it's scary. at the beginning steps. And that was the part that I think kept me in that mindset that, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't know if I'm enough. And it kept me in this loop of never actually seeking out the resources to figure out the way. Okay, so that was like my first little aha when it came to breaking through this not knowing limiting mindset. The second one is this is like has radically changed my life, and it's like such a simple concept, but I carry it into everything new that I start, and really any even like personal growth goal that I have for myself, or if I just really feel like I'm ready to stretch to the next level. The second thing that I learned is to get curious. And my friend Angela, who you met on a previous podcast, really was the one to share this with me, that a mindset of I don't know, coming from a powerful place, is actually the only way that new ideas and inspiration can come through. So think about this. If you're in the mindset of, well, I already know that, I know how to do it, you're probably locked on to the end result and the pathway that it's going to take. There's really no space for new ideas to come through. But when we get curious and when we start to take the blinders off that maybe there is a more creative solution out there, maybe there's something we haven't thought of yet, it actually has your brain start to work to find a creative solution for you versus the I already know mindset, which kind of shuts down all creativity. Because if we already know, the way to accomplish something, the way to do something, there's really no need for your brain to work that hard. And deep down, your brain is kind of lazy. Your brain doesn't want to have to work any harder than it needs to. And just by getting curious and asking better questions versus the matter-of-fact statement of, I don't know, and the underlying feeling of, and I'm not going to find out. Asking your mind instead, okay, well, how would I go about starting a podcast? How would I go about launching that business or that blog that I want to start? And what it starts to do is plants little, almost like a tracking device for your mind to pick up evidence and find examples and find resources for you that maybe you weren't aware of. So coming from a place of I don't know, but doing it in a powerful way where you're willing to seek out new answers is actually a place that can spur more creativity, more inspiration, but it's a totally different mentality of I don't know and I'm willing to get curious versus I don't know and I'm just going to stay stuck here. You probably can hear what I'm saying. There's just a whole different mentality between I don't know and I bet I can learn and I'm willing to get curious about it. And then it really ties into the third thing that I've realized about just the value of not knowing and how powerful it can be. It can actually be your greatest asset. And this is probably my favorite point and why I saved it for the end, that not knowing how to do something, how to accomplish a goal, can actually make you more resourceful. So if you already have the notion of what the path toward that goal is supposed to look like, you're not necessarily considering other options. And again, kind of tying back to the last one, it doesn't ask you to be resourceful. So there's a couple examples that I love along these lines. One of them I just recently heard about, like a major alcohol brand that just sold for billions of dollars. I won't say the actual brand in case I totally get this story wrong, but it was fascinating and I think it ties in perfectly. And it was basically started by two friends, and they purposely didn't look at examples of how other people had built an alcohol brand in the past. They decided to instead get curious and get resourceful, ask themselves, okay, well, if we were just starting from scratch and had to figure this out, how would we do it? And I think that is such a powerful stance to take. It's great to look to others for motivation and inspiration. It's great to hire coaches where that makes sense. And sometimes the fastest way to reach a goal is to hire someone who has gone before you and has done the thing that you want to do. However, it's not a bad place to be to just allow yourself to be in the total creativity and the not knowing place of being resourceful. I think about when we were planning our first event. Now, mind you, I had no experience planning events. This was not something I was well versed in whatsoever. And I knew enough to hire a planner. So I actually hired a woman who is a wedding planner, and she's amazing. She was such a big help. And there were certain things that came up in the planning process where it was just very matter of fact from someone who had planned events that, okay, it would be like, Lindsey, this is how much this costs, or here's how you do this. And in my mind, coming from a place of, well, I didn't know how it was supposed to look. So there were certain things along the planning process that she probably wanted to kill me. And there's one in particular I will share because I think she really did want to kill me. Because I would be like, well, no, there has to be a different way to do that. There has to be a better way or a more affordable option. Especially that first event, we were like balling on a budget. So a lot of the things that I got really resourceful with were tied back to being able to find a way to create the event experience I wanted to create, but do it within the budget that I had, and I think there's always a way to form a relationship or to get resourceful, find another way around the conventional way of doing things. And just one example that came to my mind as I was planning this episode was apparently renting a stage is really freaking expensive. And we were getting quotes back for, not even a big stage. It was like $1,200. And that was not in the budget. That was not something I was willing to spend $1,200 on. And I just started to Google, and I don't know how, I think it was just a Google search that popped up this ad from Craigslist. And which should have been like a red flag, right? But I was like, well, I'm at least going to reach out. I'm going to make a call. And so I call this gentleman, fairly certain that I recognized the area code in his phone number. And then the minute he answered the phone, I was like, oh, this dude is from Wisconsin, because I'm a Wisconsin girl at heart. I'm from the Midwest. I can recognize a Wisconsin accent from a mile away. And he was so friendly. And I just said, hey, Daryl, are you from Wisconsin by chance? And sure enough, he was, which in my mind, if you're from the Midwest, you'll get this. I just immediately trusted him. Again, maybe not a great choice to just trust someone from Craigslist right off the bat from one conversation, but I got a really good feeling about it. His pricing was way lower. It was like over $1,000 less than some of the quotes we were getting back. And so I'll never forget calling my event planner and saying to her, okay, I found a stage for us, for $250. Daryl, he's going to hook it up. And she's like, well, where'd you find him? And I was like hesitant to even tell her that I found him on Craigslist, but you better believe Daryl showed up. He was so reliable. He was such a pleasure to work with. And just by getting resourceful and asking for what I needed, I was able to, solve something that everyone else around me who knew, quote unquote, they knew what an event should cost and they knew what it should look like to plan something like this. They were only thinking within the realm of what they already knew and expected. So sometimes, and I want you to think about something right now that you are dreaming up. The next big idea that is really asking for your attention. And I want you to lean into the discomfort of not knowing exactly how that is going to turn out. And I also want you to sit with the idea that not knowing exactly how it is supposed to look could actually be your biggest asset, could help you be way more resourceful, could help you come up with a brand new way of launching that business or doing that thing that no one has thought of before. But I think when we give in to the disempowering belief that not knowing is a disadvantage, it completely shuts down all of our creativity. And I really do believe that you have something unique to offer the world, that the women who listen to this podcast, the women who are in our community, are world changers. You may be the one to come up with a brand new way of looking at your little view of the world and your project in a way that no one has thought of before. And I cannot wait to learn from you and to hear what you have to say about the value of not knowing. So if you're not already plugged into our Powerhouse Women community on Facebook, and if you're not already following us on Instagram, you're definitely going to want to follow along, because over the next few days, as we head into Powerhouse Women 2019, you're going to get to live vicariously through all of the excitement, especially on Instagram and our Instagram stories. And we just want you to feel, whether you're there with us in person or you're just there in spirit, we want you to feel like you're a part of the excitement, because whether or not we're going to get to squeeze you on September 7th, you really are a huge part of this community, and I'm so grateful for you. So until next time, just remember, you are not meant to do any of this alone, and there may just be value in not knowing how your next big idea is supposed to come together.